Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spot TV Forecast 2022, a TV News Check Working Lunch webinar. I'm Kathy Haley, co-founder and publisher of TV News Check, and I'll be moderating today's webinar as Janet Stilson is away. This is a really interesting year to be forecasting Spot TV revenue. It's a political year. It's a year of what will likely see continued rapid growth in the online gambling advertising sector. And it's another pandemic year featuring supply chain issues that are confounding the automotive industry and its large advertising budgets. Then there are the efforts to reform audience measurement and automate parts of the buy-sell process. We're going to be talking about this all today with four industry leaders. Kathy Doyle is Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Local Investment at Magna Global. She oversees all local activity for clients such as Amazon, American Express, BMW, Subaru, Arby's, and many others. Martha Matthews is Senior Vice President of Local Investment at Dentsu Media. She oversees local media investment for Cara and iProspect clients, managing teams in Atlanta and Los Angeles. Her experience in media buying and leading buying teams includes work in verticals including automotive, consumer packaged goods, casual dining, finance, travel, and entertainment. Joe Cerrone is Executive Vice President of Local Investment at Zenith. He oversees all local activity for clients such as Lexus, Toyota, Inspire Brands, Lululemon, Walmart, Hulu, and Disney Parks, among many others. And Sean Makajani, our one broadcaster on the panel, is the Senior Vice President of Business Development and Strategy for NBC Local and NBC Spot On, the owned stations division's advanced video advertising business designed for local and regional CTV and OTT advertisers. Welcome to our speakers. We want this to be a conversation, so please feel free to ask one another questions and comment on what one another's says. I'll be relaying the audience's questions to you, but if you see one on the Q&A tool that you want to answer, just let me know. For the audience, please use the Q&A tool on your Zoom console to ask us questions at any point in the webinar. Let's do a little forecasting. Kathy, Magna Global forecast a 13% increase for local TV advertising revenue in 2022. It says local TV would have declined by 3%. Were it not for political and Olympics. Is that forecast still holding up?
Yeah, we're sticking pretty close to that. I think, as usual, it'll vary at a state and market level with battlegrounds. And as you mentioned, online gaming rules being different state by state, but it may go up a tick either way or down a tick, but we're pretty set on that right now.
Good. And tell us what you anticipate from automotive advertisers.
Yeah, I mean, this will definitely be the category to watch. I think, in reading what the pundits are saying, there's not any clear end in sight to this supply chain issue. And I mean, maybe this year, hopefully this year, but it'll be interesting to see with all the pent up demand. It seems like demand will exceed supply for quite a while. So even after supply chain is rectified, what does that really mean from a marketing standpoint? So it'll be interesting to watch for sure this year, a year like any other, I'm sure. Again,
did you mention that second half might be better, that might get resolved?
I think people are hopeful, but the more we read about supply chain, there are people that are not that optimistic about it. So we'll see.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Martha, you've been looking into political spending this year. What are you finding out and recommending to your clients?
Yeah, so, we all know that 2022 is a midterm election year. And, by the way, that 1 year reprieve that we had from politics feels more like 1 month. But alas, here we are. But political ad spending forecasts, they're projected as high as $9 billion this year. So it is significant. And, our local investment team publishes an annual POV on the political ad spending. And we do this to educate our internal teams and clients on the impact of, what that impact will be for their business, and for their media schedules and kind of how best to navigate the landscape. So, in terms of recommendations, obviously news is a very high demand day part for politicians and PACs. And, we always recommend that clients reduce their presence in this area, especially during a political window. And maybe consider news sponsorships as an alternative. It's a non-preemptible way to still maintain a presence in that day part. But this year, with the uptick in OTT consumption, we're also recommending local news streaming as a way for our clients to really follow those viewers when and where they're viewing and consuming that local content. And that allows us to really extend reach across multiple platforms where viewers are most engaged. So, I think in a nutshell, we can expect to see a very crowded and noisy political landscape in 2022. And we'll be working diligently to mitigate the impact to our clients.
I'm kind of fascinated with the fact that some political states also have online gambling. I mean, is that a giant crash that's coming?
Yeah, I think it could be actually. I would say that online gambling is absolutely crowding out other advertisers. And, we can add New York to that list. Most recently, they just became legal. And the category is extremely competitive. And, essentially what's happening is each sports book is trying to win the states by garnering what they call first-time depositors. And in order to do that, they really have to increase their share of voice across, multiple media channels. So I think, and as you can imagine, stations are happily accepting that money and creating less available inventory across day parts. And what I didn't know, but have recently learned, is that the largest share of online sports betting ads is allocated to news programming. So just like politicians, I think 2022 will be the first year where we see this huge influx of sports betting money coupled with political, which will create a serious inventory crunch, especially in those markets that have hot races. And, I would venture to say it's going to be, really, just to be blunt, a complete shit show for advertisers and, having that issue money competing with gambling money. So we'll see what happens.
It's kind of reminiscent of, for those who are in this business as long as I am, the .com bubble. They all first came and just bought everything in sight to get their websites on the air for that thing called the World Wide Web.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
it's very reminiscent. It's just history repeating itself, and sadly, we're still here doing.
well, so Joe, is there enough local OTT inventory to compensate for these few markets where there's going to be a real crash?
That is the one problem I don't think we have, is a short supply of OTT availability. I think it's going to be very prominent in 2022. And remember, the gambling and the political, it impacts certain states,
right,
versus others. So again, to Martha's point, it will be a shit show in some states, and we need to just work around it as we have in the past, and will continue to do moving forward.
Yeah, I've even read, Martha, that there are going to be some red states with a lot of primary spending. I don't know if you bumped into that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are, there are multiple things taking place. So I think there's Senate races, gubernatorial races, and depending on the market, I mean, definitely the top, I would say, 5 states where we see the most spending: Florida, California, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona. So yeah, expect to see probably almost a third of all political spending in those specific states.
Wow. Wow. Joe, just want to check back before I ask something of Sean for his take on all this. Zenith forecast Spot TV would climb 10% to 26 billion this year. Does that still, you're sticking by that?
It does. I like Kathy's number better, but we are still sticking to the 10%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sean, react to all this. Do you have a forecast at NBCU?
You're on mute.
I am?
No, Sean. No, not you.
Oh.
Sorry. Yes, I was. I generally agree with what everybody was saying. I think our view is, we see an even stronger spot market in the second half of the year. Obviously, in the beginning of the year, we have the Olympics and Super Bowls, and tent poles are what our business, a big part of our business nowadays. Auto, like Kathy said, is still off. It's slowly coming back by manufacturer. And I think that's a key thing to keep in mind. It's not going to be equal across everyone. And, our CRO, Frank Comerford, brought up a really interesting point. He said, with so many manufacturers now going so big in EV, are we going to see some of the money move into EV brand building, which is sort of independent of the chip issue? So, maybe that's an upside. Ultimately, I think we're at least confident right now that it'll come back. Other strong categories for the year: pharma, retail, gambling, like we brought up. Also, government spending on health. I think that's going to continue with all the variants. Legal has been weak. We're not sure quite why. On the OTT space, and Joe had a great political viewpoint, which I'm going to handle. But OTT, we think 2022 is going to be very, very strong. And the big thing here is, while there is a lot of local inventory, the local inventory that's available OTT doesn't always match up to when local campaigns are placed. And that tends to be at the later end. So, local scale of premium inventory. Now, we heard, Martha say how news is important, or this type of genre, that type of genre. Having local scale, advanced audience targeting with premium inventory is really, to me, the secret sauce now, and that one-stop shop. And that's really where Spot On, I think, has really helped catapult us into new OTT sales. We have like 5 billion monthly impressions available in our overall pool, plus exclusive access to Peacock, which has been, great demand from the market. I think that's how it helps us really deliver the audience that clients want. But in local political, because those are last minute, what you saw in the last election is inventory did run out from when you targeted. And, we're going to come to this later on, but I think we as an industry, especially our buying partners, who I think have been awesome in guiding clients through the complexity of local OTT and proving to them that once you get over the hump and you have like buyers involved, agency buyers, it can actually be really easy for them because a lot of the work has been shifted to platforms like Spot On. We really need to be open-minded on how campaigns are bought, right? You have 50% of the OTT households, we don't have info on them. And so are we not going to target them? I'll just leave you with one example. At the height of the last election, we had a campaign for one of the presidential candidates that literally was in, 150 markets, and it was under-delivering in Montana. Now you can imagine you're delivering 149 out of 150, and Montana is not a lot of impressions. It should normally be this win, but they needed those Montana impressions. And what it came down to was there's just not enough humans to layer upon layer all of this targeting, especially when 50% of the households, you don't even have that information on. So I think this is going to be a year of building interesting formulas for us to all work better together with.
Just because it's harder to get local inventory, as you say, when you want it.
Yeah, and you want it all coordinated, right? Some people say, well, I'll just individually go out to all of these people. Sure, you can do that to a point, but the way we get to 5 billion monthly impressions, obviously NBC Universal and Peacock has a lot, we have access to a lot of impressions, but we have high priority, right? It's access and priority. So you'll hear people say, oh, we have our agency or our partners, they say they can give you, get us this platform or even NBCU, but can they really? What's their priority? If direct sales by the platform trumps you, or a big buyer like NBC Universal Comcast buys from third parties, big bulk buys with high priority. And what that means is we have first access to the inventory. And when you layer a target on, it's all about who gets to that target first. So if Martha's looking for leans Republican and there's another person who's also looking for leans Republican, but she uses a source that has lower priority than me, even though in her mind she's saying, but I can buy from Roku, but on the inventory pool I have access to, I have higher priority. I'm going to win, and I'm going to take that audience away. And it'll be coordinated with your frequency caps and your separations, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where I think a partnership between the agency partners and a local regional advanced platform like a Spot On can really have big payoffs that I think sometimes superficially you think, do I really need this?
We have a little question from the audience. Are the cost increase projections from inflation or more from BBO and audience declines? Anybody wanna
For
take that?
us, it's inflation. It's not because we're on impressions. We're not expecting that big of a swing with the BBO inclusion. So,
Okay. Anybody else? Joe, did you want to?
I'd agree with that. And it's the inflation based on supply and demand.
Okay. All right.
I do have thoughts on that. I mean, I think that it's sort of, there's so many different things happening at one time. I think, obviously inflation is real, increased category spending. But I do think that the impact of including broadband only homes, we do have some clients that continue to plan off of cost per points and GRPs, although we do transact off of impressions. So, I think that has posed a little bit of a challenge in terms of, with the incorporation of broadband only homes, we're seeing the ratings decline. Therefore, the cost per points are going up. So, until our clients are fully planning off of impressions and CPMs, we do have to account for the loss in ratings there, and that does impact costs as well.
And a lot of agencies are still having to do that with their clients, right? They're having to convert to cost per point. Is that just a matter of educating the clients?
I think
Actually
so.
Planning on cost per point.
Oh, they're planning. I see. Yeah. Planning is
Yeah.
different than
I
buying.
think, a lot of clients, I think GRPs are a familiar benchmark for clients. I think, when they're looking at reach and frequency, they're planning off of GRPs and cost per point. So it's just a matter of education. It'll take time, but once we can kind of do away with GRPs altogether, plan and transact and post off of impressions, it'll, make things a lot easier for everyone.
Settle down.
yeah, I think Joe mentioned earlier the transition to LPM. This reminds me very much of that. It really is just an education, and it's basically a translation of like this many GRPs before is this many GRPs now. It's not, we've been through this. If those that have been around have been through this a few times in our careers and having to explain things like this to clients. So I don't think it's insurmountable by any stretch.
Yeah, and I think look, I agree with Kathy exactly, because it takes a year normally to do this, right? In fairness, we're still getting impact data from Nielsen, right? So we're normalizing 2021. Most of the clients are fine with the explanation that yes, last year a two rating it was equal to 5,000 impressions. This year it's 1.8, it's 5,000. So you didn't get cheated. It's not really inflation. Yes, there's the clients that get confused and don't understand it, but that's a smaller subset, and it should even it out once we get out of 1 year and we can normalize everything, educate everyone, prove to everyone. So, I think what hurt us is, and maybe people disagree, but when Nielsen added out of home and you had all, those little blips on what it meant, and, some people might have started to question the new methodologies. But I think, it's LPM, all these changes we've gone through, out of home being another example, has now, I think, helped people understand that as the methodology has to change because it didn't work before. So, and that to change, you're going to have a year of pain. I don't think there's any way out of it.
Oh, you only think it's a year of pain?
Let's be positive.
Sean's our optimist. I love it.
Aren't we feeling 2022? Isn't that the song or the line?
Well, there is a poll up we have right now. what percentage of your local TV advertising transactions are bought and sold on impressions? And 43% said 100% of their buying and selling is done on impressions, and another 30% said half. So there's progress there. It's not a, you kind of think it's all going to switch over right away, but it just didn't. I want to ask you about this very small trend that I'm reading about, hearing about. Kathy, I want to start with you. We're hearing that some national advertisers, including some in packaged goods and insurance, have begun to move spending from network or national cable into local OTT, and in some cases, local linear. They're supposedly doing this to achieve more efficient targeting locally, and also to replace reach that's been declining on network and national cable. Are you seeing this happen?
I would have to say for our client roster, we're not seeing it come to fruition right now. What we are seeing is a lot more clients and client teams exploring this option, as national CPMs continue to tick up every year. And I think on the local side, we're known to hold a little steadier. That break-even point for, how many markets do you need to really, really cover, and what does that cost, is shifting. So I think it is becoming, we're getting closer to a point where we'll probably see some of that this year, but candidly, we haven't seen a lot of that yet so far.
I would
Martha,
agree with that.
you would agree?
No,
Martha?
I would agree
Annie?
with, Martha.
Okay. No, I'd ask you too, Joe.
I would absolutely agree. I've heard it. I've heard that. I've read that. I have not seen a trend yet of that happening.
Is it a return of national advertisers saying, I'm going to geo-target again because I've been using national cable for 20 years to save money? Is that rearing its head, or is this just, I want to play with OTT?
I think there's, I think that there are certainly synergies between national and local, especially from an audience perspective. I could understand why a national client might want to heavy up in certain local markets to find that high value target, especially via OTT. We do have clients that are national in scope that target certain local markets to test products. And then on the flip side of that, we have local clients that really want to align with national content to achieve that broad reach and scale. So I think it goes both ways, but I also think, when it comes to ratings erosion and declining reach from a linear perspective, that's real and that's going to continue. And, fortunately, at Dentsu, we have proprietary planning tools that tell us how much incremental reach we can achieve from other nonlinear channels like OTT. And obviously that depends on the individual market and its streaming consumption, because that, varies market to market. But I think there are ways to then achieve that incremental reach that we're missing out on from linear.
Okay, it sounds like it's a pricing thing. Sean, is this a cause to celebrate among station groups?
So look, I think it's a low-level trend that can still be meaningful given that the types of money it can move in at any given time. So, look, first off, on the TV side, where we mostly see it is like for the Olympics and Super Bowl, right? They'll get sold out, your traditional, or with, and they want to move money over. So that you see up. But what it tends to be is with clients that have some local spending, they've already been open to it. I think it's hard to convert a true, I will only advertise nationally, period, end quote, over. But what I think has helped us at NBC has been, the national and local teams now work in sync. So whenever our national team sees these issues where clients are having under delivery or they need to have more reach, we quickly step in and help work with the clients to plan. And that really has, I think, resonated. And we've been able to pivot and many times even meet the metrics, not traditional metrics we would have sold locally on, to sort of make it work. But, in general, I think it's less about price. but convincing the client that there's actually a benefit to beef up in certain local markets. And I love Martha's explanation of, we see certain markets have higher streaming. And that's why I think, on the OTT side, we are starting to see that, right? Where clients come over, and what they've wanted really from us is they've been open to coming, and I think Martha gave one of the reasons. Obviously, they also know which local markets they do better in. With the pandemic, there's also been different messaging. You might want to run one creative in Texas and Florida and not run that creative in New York. I think we can all connect the dots on obvious reasons why you would want to do that. But with OTT, because so much of the burden of the local comes on the platforms, the clients have finally seen it's pretty easy to transact this way. And, as you mentioned, you can also test out OTT, test out targeting, and not have it be, this big national buy that could somehow affect things, right? You focus on some key markets, you've convinced yourself they're high OTT, you do some innovative data targeting. Oh, and by the way, you reach key markets.
Interesting. We're getting questions from the audience about audience measurement. And we had some news on that front this morning. NBCU announced it has selected iSpot TV as one of several services that it hopes to use to provide better audience measurement, and that Publicis will be testing iSpot as a currency with NBC in anticipation of using it during the upfront season. iSpot says it will provide brands advertising with NBCU real-time airing data for linear streaming and time-shifted viewing, and that the data includes verified ad impressions, reach and frequency, linear and streaming overlap, and incrementality. Sounds pretty cool to me. Kathy, do you see that? When would something like this affect national spot, and what do you want to see generally come out of this process that NBCU has been working on and your agency is working on? What?
Yeah, on it, the iSpot announcement's great. I think, this probably isn't a local opportunity maybe this year, I don't think, but what it is an opportunity for us to learn and see how that works out from a national standpoint and what that might mean to us locally. I just want to, for us, IPG, we're completely aligned with what NBCU is doing from a measurement standpoint. There are still definitely, as we've all talked about, some super tough things to solve for, including, how multiple currencies get funded. What does measurement look like when you get beyond NBCU? And how do we get this in our buy-side system? Like, these are not easy things to solve for, but what we're doing with what we're working with NBCU also, and what we're doing is testing and learning, and we have to do that to move this forward. It's not going to resolve itself just sitting there pondering what's going to work. We have to jump in and test it and figure out what works and what doesn't. And somewhere there, I think the industry should line up behind the approach and the structure that NBCU is taking. And we have to get this moving forward and bring these pieces together from a transactional standpoint. So it's, we see this year really, I think Brian Hughes in the Magna team said it today, it's like the year of the test. Like, this is what we're going to be doing this year, which means it's a year of learning, which is a really great thing for all of us. So I applaud NBCU for what they're doing for sure. And
can you say just briefly what you hope will come out of all this testing and exploration this year?
Well, look, we all know we could be executing in a smarter way on behalf of our clients. Martha, Joe, we all talk about high value audiences and how important that is. And, we're so limited right now just buying on H demo. We're not taking advantage of the potential of our mediums. And I think, a lot of that has to come with automation also. But I think just advancing this audience informed or audience based buying is really a huge benefit to our clients, most importantly, and then us as an industry. We have to get this moving forward. We've said it quite a while, for quite a while now. We can't continue to keep doing the same things over and over and hope to still be relevant even 5 years from now, much less 10 years from now. So this evolution is critical for us as an industry, and I hope we learn what works and what doesn't work so we can build upon that as we go forward.
Joe, you're wagging you're saying yes the most vigorously. So go next.
Because I agree wholeheartedly with everything she is saying. The most important thing is that we move forward as an industry, not as an individual. And listen, change is tough. It's tougher for some and it's easy for some, but change is tough. And going out and doing what NBC did, and we're thrilled that we're able to partner with them and test this, is gutsy, and we're doing it because it needs to be done. Is this the end all? Is this going to be the one? We don't know, but we would only know by testing. There are going to be so many tests going across all agencies and all station groups over the next year. We are literally molding the next generation of local spot. It will no longer look like it has in my past. So that is what we're pioneers right now. And people might not like that I say this. Local should have started changing a couple of years prior to when it did. And now we are on that road. We are moving in the right direction. I think we're moving at a good speed right now. What I would like to see is that the industry come more together, and because we have such common goals, that it would be great if the industry was focused on their common goals.
And when you say the industry should have moved earlier, you mean to get rid of diaries?
Imagine.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
That is definitely part of it. And it was not under my leadership at the time, so I'm not taking credit for it. But when Publicis decided that we could no longer use diaries in any market, and we switched to another measurement service for 5 years, I think that was the smartest thing that you could have done for your clients. And I think that it was a smart thing to do for the industry. It pushed this change, I believe.
Martha, I want to get your thoughts on all this. How do you want to see this change the world?
Yeah, I agree with so many things that Kathy and Joe just said. I think, first of all, props to NBC. I think it's a testament to the move for alternate measurement solutions. So it's a step in the right direction for sure. I'm sure we'll continue to see more types of these announcements. And we agree, measurement needs to be redefined moving forward. And, we're looking at current challenges and future solutions as well. I think to Joe's point, what we don't want to see are multiple siloed solutions. We are hopeful that media partners can come together with comprehensive solutions and not walled gardens, so to speak. So, and then testing and learning, of course. And I think making sure that there's some sort of accreditation there as well is important to us. I think, it's time for an evolution. I think, the local landscape, to Joe's point, is very slow to evolve. And, all of us are very eager to, speed things up and get going. There's so much data and technology available to us, for us to continue buying off of age and gender. And, it's just a little bit bananas in my opinion, but we're getting there. And, I would say we're not bound to legacy measurement, and measurement needs to keep up in order to meet our needs and our clients' needs.
And also during this evolution, we're not going to have all the answers immediately. And I believe that a lot of the industry is getting frustrated that the answers aren't there. And the first time we take a step out of the box towards change, that we didn't succeed and hit it right out of the park. But you know what? We get knocked down, we wipe our knees off, and we keep moving forward. And that's what I think 2022 is going to be.
So Sean, you work at NBCU. Are you able to raise your hand and say, we want the same thing for local, or what do you want from this whole process?
So we've been actually working with many of these partners. We've been working directly even with Kathy on how can we come up with local versions of this, and this will, everything we're talking about will eventually roll out for local, so that everyone should rest assured. And number two, everyone brought up that we can't be working in silos. We 100% agree. And right from the top, from Linda Yaccarino overall and Frank Comerford on the local side, everything here is meant to be open, right? We believe it has to be an industry approach, both from the broadcasting side and the agency side. So I think we're aligned there. I think what the frustration from my perspective, who has been trying to work with these vendors for quite some time, has been how little these type of vendors understand local and how you need to customize the data sets to make it actually work for local. I think we're getting now to a stage where people are moving forward, but that's been some of the initial hurdles, that when we would apply their methodologies to local, it wouldn't really work. So, but even beside that, right, iSpot I think is going to get there. What iSpot will do beyond the stuff that you also mentioned was also help coordinate the overlap of viewership between TV and OTT. Right. I think the one thing, hopefully we can all agree, and I saw you put up a poll of who's placing, what percentage local. I mean, local is OTT, includes OTT, and there's some people that have 0 OTT listed. OTT and TV go hand in hand. If you're only advertising on one of them, and by the way, we do see advertisers who say, well, I'm only going to do OTT. It's the new shiny toy. You can't do either. Don't you want to reach everyone? Right? Don't you want to reach even if you have a targeted audience, don't you want to reach? But you need to coordinate it. And the coordination is going to happen through tools and through people, right? It's going to continue to get more automated, but you have to be savvy of how they play together and how they work together. And that's where, you see the NBCU team, us locally, nationally, all try to work with clients and agencies to help develop that. Because ultimately, when you say, what do we want out of these alternative measurement systems? It raises the bar for everyone, right? It's good for everyone, which is why when we put out the RFP, we took input from the industry. Nielsen responded. Like, I want everyone to also understand, this is not an anti-Nielsen thing. This is about us all saying, we need to improve measurement. We need to make measurement more accurate, more results-oriented, more cross-platform, right? And we have to work together between systems. Now, to everyone's point, you can't contract with 6 different vendors to get one output. That's not going to work. You need it somehow to work together, and it costs everything to come into mind. But ultimately, I think that's what we want to happen, and we want TV to get credit for all the sales we drive. I mean, let's rewind a little. We've all lived the digital boom where people used to tell us, I love banner ads because when you click on it and it goes to a sale, I know it's my sale. Now, my retort is, would you have ever clicked on a banner ad for a mattress if you hadn't seen the TV ad touting how good that mattress was? Probably not. And that's what these tools, whether it's a brand lift study, an ad recognition study, that's what you want. You want a holistic approach that puts everything together and lets the client really understand what drives their sales. And in the end, we as TV aren't scared of that, because we know TV never got the credit for the sales they were driving.
Sean, you just one quick thing. You mentioned that some of the national systems that NBCU is testing right now need to be customized for local. Can you just give an example of like one place where they need to fix it so that it works for local?
Well, it's not necessarily like fixed, but it's like, let's take iSpot, their methodologies, and they have locals on their roadmap. It's not ready to be launched, but that's what they're working on, right? As they, everything is a sample. The good thing about iSpot, they're using connected TV, set-top box, but again, that's not everyone. Unfortunately for us, no one has, if we had all viewership data, this would be a lot easier. So we are to a degree moving between panels, right? Panels under different words or names, but in the end, it's a subset, and you have to extrapolate out, right? How do you extrapolate out OTA viewing locally, right? So it's that, and you see the same thing Nielsen had. Nielsen's national sample had issues, and which was different than why the local sample had issues. The local, you couldn't add together viewership in local markets to equal the national market, right? Which blows people's mind every day, like at least at NBC when we talk to different teams. But that's what we need to work through. And I think we can finally get there because, you know, if you look at everyone on this panel, everybody's basically saying the same thing and in agreement. So if someone's trying to come in and be a bully and say, you're going to use my product, it won't be open source, blah, 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 I think they're SOL because none of us are going to work with them.
There are a lot of the questions from the audience are about BBO homes, about audience measurement, help, what do we do? So you have this wonderful testing process. What do you do in the meantime? What do you do with the fact that Nielsen, I think it was Wendy McMahon who said that Nielsen is overstating BBO home penetration. And that of course, Nielsen has had other problems. They added the BBO homes before they solved the pandemic panel problem that they had. I mean, what does the industry do in the meantime? Kathy, do you want to start? Like, how do you compensate for a rating system that's struggling?
So here's my thought. Our measurement system was flawed before the pandemic. It's flawed during the pandemic. It's going to be flawed after the pandemic. It's, you know, we're all just doing the best we can with what we have and trying to evolve this. As far as the inclusion or exclusion of BBO homes, we have been asking for this at least for 5 years. And every quarter, the gap between BBO and non-BBO has gotten bigger and bigger. I remember saying to somebody, like, we have to rip this Band-Aid off because it's going to turn in, you know, like it's going to be a mess. And here we are. So I think delaying it has made the transition harder for the sales side. I think, you know, to Sean's point, national and local measurement is not the same, but BBO has been included in the national since 2013. And I think in excluding those homes, we were misrepresenting local market viewing. Higher doesn't always mean it's right. Lower doesn't always mean it's wrong. If these homes are viewing, we should be counting them and reporting them to our clients. Otherwise, we're missing a significant part of the audience. Is it perfect? No. But in my opinion, I think it's significantly more incorrect to not include the homes. And you know what, I know in some markets impressions are going down as well, but I dare say if everyone were on impressions, these homes would have been included a long time ago, I think, if we didn't have to deal with the drops in ratings that the sales side is struggling with.
Thoughts, Joe? Agreement?
I agree. This transition that Nielsen made, it was monumental. I mean, it was huge. And it was done during a monumental time, a national pandemic. You know, I had referenced earlier, I went through the LPM transition. Very similar, you know, the sky was falling when they first came out. We worked through the first year. So was this transition with Nielsen and BBO homes painless? No. Was it what we had hoped for? Maybe not. But, and I'm not here to bash or sell Nielsen, but I think fair is fair. They made a huge change. They have stumbled along the way. They are working to repair it, but to not have BBO homes reported, in my opinion, was a bigger misstep than any misstep that has happened during the transition. And how do we get through it during this time where we're learning and improving and changing? You know, with Nielsen, the station partners have worked really well with us. I know it has been painful at times, but that's where your relationships come in. We will get through this, and we're keeping our eyes on the bigger picture. We're not focusing on, you know, first quarter deliveries. we're past that now, and we're looking at big picture, and we're heading in that direction. So this change had to take place.
Martha, anything to say?
I think that they summed it up very well. I think, yeah, absolutely. It to Joe's point, the mistake would be not including those homes. It's a more accurate representation of, viewership in the current landscape. I think, if you're watching your local ABC affiliate on YouTube TV, they should get credit for that. And now they are. And then to Kathy's point, yes, it's flawed. The measurement is flawed, and it has been, and it will continue to be. I think, obviously they've had issues with panels and, now MRC accreditation, but again, I think, this has sort of been an impetus for all of us as an industry to say, you know what, we need to, look at other measurement providers and what does work best for our clients. And, what we want to know for our clients is what's the most accurate representation of what their dollars are delivering. So, we are seeking those solutions. And I think there's tremendous opportunity for change, to use data and technology to think about new currencies and measurement for the future of television. And, to Joe's point, that doesn't mean Nielsen's not a part of that conversation. So.
And Sean, so is the answer, while the industry gets through this transition, you have to negotiate different ways to adjust the numbers that some people in the industry see as inaccurate, such as like undercount or overstating BBO homes? I mean, are you having to say to agencies, we have to adjust these numbers?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, we're going to many of our clients and just saying, if it was a 2.0 rating before and it was 5,000 impressions, now it's a 1.8 rating and it's 5,000, you're getting the same impressions, and it's worked out. It's worked out fine. But look, I think we also have to separate who's complaining also about the ratings. I think on the buyer side, so many people have moved to impressions. They understand the transitions. It's working out. Yes, there might be a client here or there where you'll just have to make good. But they know it's a transition. The feedback you're hearing on also ratings are also programmers, right? The content side of our business isn't happy that the rating went down, but it just shows you how the rating was always flawed. Why wouldn't impressions matter? And Martha actually said something really important, which I hope everyone got, when she said, if they're watching you on YouTube TV, you should get credit. I think what people don't know is Hulu Live, YouTube TV, Fubo, all those virtual cable companies, digital cable companies, weren't being counted. How do you not include that? If you're a broadband only home, maybe your child has cut the cord and you gave them your passwords and they're watching NBC on TVE, you don't want credit for that? Of course you want credit for that, right? So I think we had to make this change so that we could capture all the viewership. How the sample has to get fixed, that's always going to be a year transition. But in the end, this should capture on an impressions basis the more correct viewer. And we should be forcing Nielsen to capture all of that viewership. The other thing, the reason it had to happen, which I don't think anyone covered, is it's that point that I brought up earlier of how TV and digital work hand in hand now. Until you move to impressions, you can't plan. It's too hard, right? To do, it doesn't work. Your systems don't talk to each other. You're always going to get people who act like they don't understand a point, what a rating point is or an impressions are. So this change had to happen. We had to rip the Band-Aid off. Let's rip the Band-Aid. It's happened now. And let's get through it. And I think we'll be fine on the other end, and the ratings will normalize.
I want to ask you all about a move to a different way of measuring audiences. I think Kathy calls it, and maybe Martha too, high value audiences or audience segmentation. You want to buy advertising based on a viewer's possible likelihood to buy something instead of buying ratings. Kathy, where are you on that?
Well, we're super keen to get it going, and there are a few things that come along with it. But the one thing that from a local perspective, you really can't bring this to a reality without automation. Like, think about, we have millions and millions of data points that we can apply at a local market level, but I can't afford operationally to be doing that in Glendive. It's just not feasible for us to work that way. So if and when let's be optimistic, when automation becomes a reality and we can write our algorithm for our given clients and say, here's my high value audience, here's the avails in the market, what's the jumping off point for the schedule, what does that look like, and then bring the negotiation and the art and everything to the buy. But until we have that automation piece, all we're doing now is laying the groundwork and trying to get ready for it. So things like we've been talking a lot and looking into this year include demo expansion. Instead of, like, once you can buy off an audience, you don't have to buy adults 25-54 anymore. You move to adults, whatever, 18 plus, with that informed layer of data in there. It's a smarter buy for the client. I say it all the time. I don't care if you're 18 or you're 80. If you want to buy this client's product, I want to be messaging you. So to us, we're doing everything we can to keep it moving forward. We're like I said, looking into this audience expansion thing and what that means from a costing standpoint and everything, and how you frame that in client conversations. But until we have the automation, I just don't see it really being put into place.
Kathy, do you need the automation to be end to end, like from RFP to invoice and posting, or what part of it needs to be automated to get this done?
I mean,
Just curious.
ideally, you want end to end, of course, because then you can inform what's working, what's not working. It brings it all together. But even if we just had that first phase where Joe and I worked together many, many years ago when we were talking about trying to build our own system where it's, we called it Jumpstart, where it puts together everything, all these data pieces and information, and let the buyer take it from there. Even if we just had that, it would be better than what we have today. But ideally, of course, you want the end to end, because we spend so much time on, manual, task-oriented back office things that we shouldn't be spending time on.
And just to confirm, you want automation on the buy side. That's what you're waiting. That's what's holding this up. It's not the sell side.
Right.
Okay, Joe.
Right.
Well, the two go hand in hand, but yes, Kathy was referring to the buy side, but we want end to end from RFPing straight through everything. And right now, for the most part, excluding what Kathy had just covered, we have end-to-end automation. However, it's in different systems for different pieces of it, and we piece it all together. It would be great again if the industry had agreed on, an end-to-end system. I don't see that happening in the very near future, because I'll be optimistic. But yeah, the automation is and we've come a long way. We truly have. But to Kathy's point, I just, that's a part that we're missing, and I cannot understand why we don't have it yet. And that's just my ignorance, that it seems very easy because the data is there to put it all together.
When you say, what do you need automated from the sell side in order to buy high value audiences? I'm just curious.
It would be terrific if we were all in sync and we were all using the same platform to provide this data with us. Right now, I used to say when I bought 100 years ago, every station came in and they were number one on my demo, and then they would get into people interested in buying a light SUV who drink beer on a Sunday watching Married with Children. We're number one. So, I can never verify all these different data points that they were bringing to me. And now here we are 30 years later. We do have the data, but we don't bring it all together yet.
Martha, do you have thoughts on this? I know Dentsu's been pioneering in this high value audience stuff.
Yeah.
Where are you on that? And what do you need to get it done?
Well, so Dentsu definitely takes an audience-based approach from planning, through to execution. I think, we have a people-based insights platform called M1, and we're able to leverage that to really understand audiences across all video platforms. And that enables us to look beyond age and gender, and we can then create custom audiences and match that with other data sources like ComScore to really inform our channel and programming selections at a local market level. So, our hope is to ultimately be able to transact off of these audiences one day. We do have media buying software that is working to ingest this data as well on the buy side, so that we can then use that data again to inform our programming decisions. So, I think in terms of automation, yeah, we've automated as much as we possibly can. And the, software systems have automated the pre-buy part of the platform, but the end-to-end solution is what we ultimately need. So,
because, when Joe was talking about having everybody on the same system, I thought, and Sean can answer this, that the station groups didn't want to be on the same system as the buyers because they thought, uh-oh, they're going to be able to see our data in there. Can't do that. You're wagging your head. Yes, that was a problem.
I think that's a factor. But when I say the same system, an example, going off everything Martha just said, which I thought was fabulous. Okay, we will have people. Oh, what about Squad? Squad only does it off of age and gender. So that's another obstacle that it's part of the industry. It's legacy. It is what we live with. So if we are to make these moves into more than age, what is our benchmark then? The industry, including Squad, would need to evolve to that as well. So, so there are pieces that do move forward, but then there are other pieces that you need that are not moving forward, all at the same time.
Sean, of course, NBCU is owned by Comcast, so you have cable operator data, I guess, that you've got some of this data. What do station groups do if they're going to have buyers coming to them saying, I want to buy a high value audience based on data that it's proprietary, it's my data? How does the station group respond that they don't have any data?
So for I'll just get to that in 1 second. I just want to use the example of where Joe was going on one systems and what we need to do.
Yes.
Think about it. The simplest thing is, do you want the world to be the VHS tape or a Betamax, right? Right now, we're stuck in the Betamax world where all these different systems don't talk to each other and you have to buy only a Sony product. What the industry wants is more of an open source. VHS was like an original open source, right? All these companies made it, they didn't control it. So you felt if I'm recording on a VHS tape, I'm not beholden to everyone. Like leaving aside the privacy of your inventory avails and data avails, that to me is really not the big issue, because you don't have to share that to do what everybody wants. You might have to do a subset of that, but that's not what's critical. What's really critical is like and you brought up the data, which is a great question, right? NBC Unified, one of the big things that, there was iSpot and NBC Unified was announced. NBC Unified basically started the process of doing a clean room, right? Where we said, hey, we have 150 million unique IDs on people. Kathy's clients have all this information on high value. We can't merge that data together right now because everybody's data is proprietary. So you create a clean room, you have a third-party vendor that helps sort it out and then put it in a way that can be overlaid on your viewership data to then tie it into the programs. That's like step one, right? To then the buy. You want then the next step to be automated. So then once I find the program, I can click and buy the program, the price is there, right? So that's the waterfall of the automation, because I know you kept on asking like what needs to be automated. And believe it or not, we found it on the OTT digital side. As you get these complex OTT buys, local buys, which Google and all of that had never anticipated because they really bought like a TV campaign. It even affects things like invoicing. Invoicing wasn't designed for it. So you have, when we say the ecosystem, it literally is from being able to see inventory avails and overlay the data all the way down to how do I get my invoice and proof of performance so that everything matches the way we want. We don't need all of those to happen at the same time, but we need at least progression. So, when you say broadcast groups not seeing all the data, we don't see all the data today, right? So one, there's a level of trust. DR is a simplistic example. When they say my phone never rang, did it never ring or not, right? We don't know. What do? We use ratings to say, but hold it. You said your calls went down 50%, but my ratings went up 20%. Doesn't make sense, but we're going to have to do that. But I will tell you, look, the way Kathy sort of handled that same question and project with us is just honestly wanting to work together. I don't think any agency is trying to use buying off a different currency as a way to cheat the broadcasters. We've suspected DR was doing. Will some try? Sure. But I think in the vast majority of cases, it's going to be us coming up with a currency, figuring out how a make good would work, figuring out how both sides don't feel cheated, because there'll always be non-equal information. I'm forgetting the exact expression of that, but non-equal information. And we go from there. I'm optimistic, and that's why we're doing these testing. That's why we're building things like NBC Unified for clean rooms and whatnot.
Because the agencies will pay more for a high value audience, right?
Yeah, and look, I think, but see, here's the thing. Our ultimate goal would be we want the higher money and all of that. I would argue broadcast television will just come out super ahead if we just prove the actual people who are watching us that we get full credit for our real viewership, and people don't think our viewers are in an undesirable demo. I'm not even gonna say that. And just one thing on demo, I'm so glad everyone wants to move away from 18 to 49 or 25 to 54. As someone apparently soon to age out of one of those demos, the notion that I don't buy products when I probably buy more products now than I have in my whole life is crazy. And it's an antiquated system built for America, how America consumed goods 40 years ago.
Well, this was such a great, I know you folks have hard stops. It's 2:01. This has been, for me, really fascinating. Thank you very much. Kathy Doyle, Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Local Investment at Magna Global. Martha Matthews, Senior Vice President of Local Investment at Dentsu Media. Joe Cerrone, Executive Vice President of Local Investment at Zenith. And Sean Makajani, Senior Vice President of Business Development and Strategy at NBCU Local. Thanks very much. We'll put the poll results in the story that we're going to run about this webinar, because I haven't really had time to address those. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.